I'm trying to distract my cat. She's very hyper right now and very curious of what I'm doing, so I've turned on the laser in hopes that she'll leave me alone. Hi. It's been a while and I haven't done these readings for a while. I wanted to do this particular reading during the spooky season, but you know, life in your 30s, you kind of have to sacrifice the things you want to do with the things that you have to do, and sometimes even those things get sacrificed. And yes, it's finally cold, so I can bring out my cheesy fake fireplace. I love it so much. So before I get started with the reading, let's go back to the early 90s. I'm a little girl, and there seems to be a lot of movies and the stories out there that contain witches. And witches consistently are bad. And I start to realize, or notice at least, that there's not really a male equivalent. Parents tell me, okay, well, there's wizards. But why are witches usually bad and wizards are usually good? Okay, no, the real equivalent are warlocks. Okay, but why are there not many warlocks then in all these stories? Something seems a little off. All right, then I move on. Please, Riley, chase after your laser. Don't be a jerk. She's definitely going to be a jerk. All right, she knows what this is about. Years later, I learn, of course, as many American students do in high school, about the Crucible and the Salem witch trials. And we learn that, well, okay, witches, as far as what we know in popular culture, come from the scares of witches in the 1600s, the 1500s, the 1400s. In America, we learn about the Puritans and how they are a group of overly zealous, religious, superstitious group of people who really seem to not like the colors, which they did actually, but we just show them in black a lot. And they killed a bunch of people unjustly, and so we find out witches are just regular people killed by the real baddies, which are religious zealots. Years go by, and I convince my parents to go to the East Coast for Thanksgiving when I was 21. We go to Massachusetts, and I insist, of course, again, I'm starting to realize I was a little spoiled. I insist that we go to Salem. And we see a mock trial for a witch, and my dad makes the joke, now remember, she wouldn't be here if she wasn't guilty. And then years go by, and I moved to Scotland. And I realized, wow, the Europeans really blew us out of the water with the witch trials. They killed people en masse, men and women, but mostly women, burning them at the stake, burning them, not just hanging them like they did in Salem, and by hundreds. So, well, we find out where the Puritans got it from. Thanks, Daddy Europe. So then, after my time in Scotland is over, and I get to visit actual places where people are somehow weirdly, gleefully excited to tell us about horrific stories of the execution of witches, I get to visit Prague. And that's where my genuine interest in witches and the historical lesson of what we can learn from witches, the witch hunts, and what it actually is caused by, not witches themselves, but the witch hunts. And that is not just puritanical religious zealots who are ignorant and, my cat's being naughty again, who are ignorant and superstitious, but actually a far more insidious reason is underneath it all. And that is, well, power and control. Utilizing something that was in existence at the time, which was extreme ignorance and illiteracy. So I have this hat that I wasn't able to wear that my cat really is interested in right now. And I don't want her to destroy it. So I'm going to put it on. I'm going to try and hope that she leaves me alone for the most part while I read my article. Okay, let's get started. Leave me alone, Riley. Let me show you before I start. There's the culprit. Riley. Yes, you're a little jerk. All right. But we love her. Okay, let's do this. I titled this, and I wrote this a few years ago, so it's a little dated, but I love it. I titled this, I Always Wanted to Be the Witch. A few years ago, a friend of mine and I decided to take a quick trip to Prague in the Czech Republic. Being that we went during the Christmas season, it was absolutely beautiful with the lights and the music and snow that dusted the ground. What an amazing place. One day, as the night began to shroud the city with a hazy darkness, we passed by a building on the main street near the river with a small rickety sign labeled Museum of Torture. Having a rather dominant morbid streak in me, I somehow convinced my friend to go in. She seemed slightly nervous and hesitant, but I assured her that it would be funny, fully expecting stiff, poorly made wax figures enduring medieval torture devices we've all heard of, such as the pendulum or the rack. Go back a few years. Young me is lying flat on her stomach, chin resting on hands, with her elbows sinking into the carpet. Being from a reasonably conservative Christian household, there were very few movies that I was allowed to watch, and television was absolutely banned. I would have likely been watching our assortment of Disney princess movies for the nth time. This is what I saw. A dainty young woman, stunningly beautiful, mild-mannered, and accepting of whatever cruel fate befell her. Her adversary was, well, always quite the opposite. A voluptuous, greedy octopus witch, a beautiful, jealous, magic-wielding queen, a green, vengeful, bad fairy. I knew that these witches were supposed to be the bad guys. I knew that they were unnecessarily cruel to those poor, unfortunate souls. But let's be real for a moment. One had eels for pets, put her debtor soul into jars and could grow the size of a mountain. The other had a mirror that talked, knew the future, and could transform herself into an old hag. While the final one, my favorite, had a pet crow, an army of minions, and could turn into a dragon. Who on earth wouldn't want to turn into a dragon? I had asked myself, why was it persistently taught to me that the young, demure, quiet, delicate girls were somehow better than these strong, boisterous, and powerful women? Why were these always pitted against each other while the dashing male hero had to rush in and fix these women's squabbles? While my friends and sisters argued with each other which beautiful princess they were, why was it that I always wanted to be the witch? As my friend and I left the museum, pale and silent, we lingered for a moment at a dark, cold street, tourists scurrying about us. Wow, I am so sorry, I told her, feeling an intense amount of responsibility and guilt. I really didn't expect that. She was generously kind about it all, but we both made sure that she would be in charge of what attractions we would see from then on. So what was in the museum that affected us so deeply? Well, to be honest, it wasn't flashy with Quentin Tarantino-esque violence as I had anticipated. No silly wax figures greeted us, no poorly acted dramatizations. In fact, the building seemed tired, bleak, and we were the only attendees there. I heard the wooden floors creak beneath my feet as old buildings do, and authentic ancient torture devices were scattered around the few rooms. Originals used to inflict unimaginable pain. It's strange, I know, but as I neared the first torture device, the mule, as it was called, I found it difficult to get close enough and to read the inscription. It was almost as if I could still smell the blood on the worn, blackened wood. I could feel the agony of the poor souls being split into two. Who on earth created such an abominable thing? Who could bear watch it do its deed? Who was it even made for? We all know what torture is for, right? It's to get information out of someone or to force someone to confess to something. Of course, many of these devices were made with this in mind, but it seemed to me that most of them were created purely to humiliate and punish. Who did these medieval people wish to punish then? Well, the traitor, of course, the thief, the murderer, and the witch. In fact, the plaque over every single torture device made sure to include that it was used on accused witches. The majority of the devices were rather gender neutral. It didn't care what you were born as. If you had skin to peel and bones to crush, you were good to go. However, some were made specifically for women. I wondered to myself, as I passed by one disgusting, perverted, grotesque device after another, if women knew that such things existed, what exactly would entice them to want to be a witch? Well, the answer was simple. They weren't. In many of the descriptions, some of these women were simply accused of witchcraft because they were outspoken, quarrelsome, or so-called gossips. Those executed for witchcraft in Europe in the period of 1400 to 1700 is estimated at 60,000 based on documented records. However, most executions were undocumented, and some historians believe the number to be closer to 600,000. The number does not include banishment, fines, and other methods of punishment. Of course, there are many debates regarding the number of deaths that varied year by year and country by country. It's true that it wasn't always women accused of witchcraft, but they did consist of 75% or more burnt at the stake. If something unlucky or unfortunate happened in the community, many of the people, men and women alike, in the village would blame the most outspoken, independent, and strong-willed women of witchery. There are also plenty of devices for women who strayed from the rules of sexuality and purity. In short, witch was just another word for a woman who didn't conform or obey enough. Though we may not believe in witchcraft as they did back in the day, I can still see the effects it has made on our society. Being an outspoken woman is some risky business. I do realize that recently Disney has been trying so very hard to change this rhetoric, but the Disney of my day definitely made the message clear. Do not be boisterous, do not be independent, do not be unique, do not be opinionated, do not be ugly, do not be powerful, do not be old. Always, always be quiet, affable, and needing a man to come to protect you, or else be called a witch and get impaled by the sharp end of a ship. So I love that thing that I wrote, which I wrote to no one, just to myself. I was just suddenly very, very interested in the whole thing. But I have since then started to obsessively study witches. I've moved on from the saints and I've gone on to witches and the history of it, and I have, as I kind of figured, realized that it is incredibly complicated and complex. As you can imagine, it spans over multiple different European countries, as far as we know in history, and it spans over a long period of time. And the reason why people got executed or tortured or fined or banished were because of a myriad of reasons, and a lot of times because of political, economic, and social discord. And I'm still learning, and I'm so excited to share it all with you guys in the coming years. Yeah, it's definitely going to be years. I take a long time. Look at my cat. Oh, yeah, she's definitely obsessed with my hat. Maybe there's something to the whole cat thing. Anyway, I've got to go before it's too late, but I'm excited to work on the next series, which is going to be about, what do you think? Doesn't really fit my head with bun. Anyway, thanks guys, and I will see you later.